Years ago in 2014, I think, a friend of mine, collaborator of mine, Scott Ake, offered to come and give a paper as he was passing through Chicago for a visit. And I said, hey, why not? And that was the beginning of our Colloquium series. Since then, we have invited people from around the world and some very local around Chicago who live maybe a block or two away, some who live in Europe and beyond, and inviting them to give a 35-minute talk that's accessible and engaging and entertaining for our students is just an excellent way of bringing the world of philosophy to the students here at Northeastern.
In my research, I take tools from areas of linguistics, semantics and pragmatics particularly, and I try to use those tools to understand what we're doing when we're talking about areas of life that we seem to care a great deal about, areas such as morality or aesthetics, as well as fiction and storytelling.
When I traveled abroad for the first time to the Soviet Union, when there was a Soviet Union, that began me questioning the way in which my own society, America, did things and looked at things. And eventually that path from the Soviet Union led me to Japan. And I'm just really motivated in understanding the human condition and the kinds of things that make us human, the universal and the differences that make that universal meaningful.
So I've always had an interest in philosophy where I still remember vividly like the 12 hours of unbelievable clarity where I completely understood Hegel, totally got it. And I think the lessons that you take from all those ideas is about the questions that you ask. And so in this case, for the Here Now project, it was questions about the ethics of climate change and the consequences of it, but also the narrative of climate change. How do you tell this story in a way that reaches beyond the people who already care?
So my talk for today is titled José Martí's Defense of Democracy. It's about the Cuban iconic philosopher and poet José Martí. He has an essay titled Our America, and in this essay he uses the concept of nature. He's taking it from the tradition of Romanticism and Ralph Waldo Emerson and drawing out the implications of the concept for questions about social justice.
My areas of interest are in ancient philosophy and political philosophy, and really questions about what kinds of actions are political actions, different ways of thinking about power, different ways of thinking about the relationship between emotions and political philosophy as well.
Ethics of looksism. And looksism is this view that somehow there is something wrong with dating people simply based on their looks. There are different arguments for this view, but that is in principle what the view is. Dating people on the basis of their looks is definitely morally permissible and in some cases morally obligatory, actually.
In this talk on tact is an underappreciated communicative virtue. Tactful utterances describe utterances that are moves in conversations that navigate hard questions well. Sometimes we are owed it to hear certain things, and sometimes we can have obligations to tell others or inform them of certain things, while you can owe it to your friend to inform them of that. And so I call that a discourse entitlement. And so my talk is trying to understand how these discourse entitlements work and how they relate to this concept that we have for evaluating the quality of conversational contributions, this concept that I use the word tact to describe.
It's an experience I think many people have. In Plato's dialogues, Socrates asks people questions and the interlocutors have this experience of realizing that something that they thought they understood, they don't actually understand at all. And that's my experience when I read about questions like how do we know there's an external world? How do we know the relation of cause and effect? How do we know that there's a self? Hearing these questions, the effect is that you become reflective and you also learn logic to guide your reflection. And once you become a more reflective person, I think, it changes your life. You feel like you have the freedom to use your mind to understand the world. You don't have to just go with what other people say. And it also just makes your life a lot more interesting.
I think part of why I began to study philosophy was just because I was really into trying to understand the draws of different kinds of political worldviews at the time and thinking about the ways that power is exercised. And when I began to think about why am I taking to philosophy so readily, the answer was obviously right in front of me, that my grandfather had been a philosophy professor. And so I think I just had it in my surroundings, with my uncles and aunts who grew up with him, and people around me who were very passionately arguing about things that really mattered in terms of things that were changing in our political and cultural environment. And it took a while to find the right sort of channels within philosophy to kind of really get to those points, because philosophy is so broad and there's so many areas that you can get really involved in.